So here we have my oldest EDH deck, Karador. He originally was not Karador, he was Teneb the Harvester, which is from Planar Chaos back in 2000, I want to say 2007, maybe 2008, but I'm pretty sure it's 2007, like 99% sure. Anyway, so Karador says he's an 8 mana, and he costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your graveyard. During each of your turns, you may cast 1 creature from your graveyard. Alright, so he is outclassed now by Thrasios and Tymna in terms of junk plus X colors. He's also technically, like, Atraxis, probably a better junk X commander. And even just in junk specifically, there's the Ravos Soul Tender plus I can't remember the other partner commander, but I know they printed some stuff recently that in a lot of ways is probably better than Karador. But I've stuck with him, and I've kind of found a way to make him still work pretty well despite you know, being outclassed by a lot of decks. So to start off, we're going to go with Grand Abolisher. Karador in general, my deck tends to fluctuate between Staxy and just normal. So I haven't really, you know, I never really leave him as one for too long. It really just depends on the play group. Right now, obviously, sorry, hatebears more so than Staxy, but sometimes Staxy as well. So we got Grand Abolisher in there, so you can see he's kind of a little bit more in the hatebears, you know, control theme right now. Bane of Progress obviously follows that. You know, I would put Bane of Progress in my rune deck, but I have too many artifacts and enchantments. So I kind of shy away from it, and I found that Karador is really the perfect home for that card. So we got Diabolic Tutor, pretty straightforward. Necromancy, it is on the reserve list, so it's not a bad pickup. It is instant speed removal if you want it to be, or you can just enchant the creature with it. So it's you know, it's a pretty solid card. We've got Vindicate, which is, you know, again, destroy target permanent. Grim Haruspex, so I don't mind this card. The only problem with it is the draw trigger is not May. So if you're doing like a Karmic Guide Reveillark combo, you need to make sure to remember not to accidentally mill yourself with it, which is pretty easy to do if you're not bad. But just like make sure to not be bad. Deathrite Shaman is junk, so he's got a pretty good home in it. I do find myself exiling a lot of things from people's graveyards. I ended up adding him into the deck specifically because there was a super obnoxious lands deck in our play group. I don't like Lord Windgrace, you know who you are. And I needed to exile a lot of his lands. And it did that, and it did it well. So, you know, that's what you get. Here we have, and I do need to go over this actually. So the Euro and APAC lands are some of the coolest things that Wizards has ever done. It's kind of hard to read, but on the bottom here, you can see it says Belgium. It's listing like a swamp in Belgium. So all the artwork in the Euro and APAC lands are actually based on real places and are paintings of real places. So somewhere in Belgium, you can go find this exact scenery. They have Venice for, you know, Venice, like Italy, very cool for the island. They've got like the Netherlands and stuff. So there's some really cool lands, and they are actual places. I had put a little bit of money into holding on to some of these, expecting them to go up in value, but Wizards did actually reprint that artwork from 2 of the forests, the Black Forest in Germany and Nottingham in, I guess that's probably England. So they did reprint 2 forests artwork into the dual deck Knights versus Dragons. So those forests, you can find them, and they're pretty cool, and they're pretty cheap if you want to pick them up to have like that really cool real world artwork. The Black Forest artwork alone on the forest, it was really nice art. I mean, really fantastic art. Vampire Hexmage is in the deck mostly just because I was encountering tons and tons of planeswalkers, and it was just driving me nuts. So, you know, now I have this in here to deal with them. That's very meta dependent, very playgroup dependent. Survival of the fittest, it's an auto include in any graveyard deck. And honestly, I'd say even any green deck. Phyrexian Tower, you have to have it. It protects things from being exiled, and it gives you, you know, black mana. Elves of Deep Shadow, it's color fixing. Artwork is fantastic. You know, that's really all I got to say there. I have my nice black border Savannah that someone actually just took a revised one and put Sharpie all over the edges. It's not a World Championships one or anything like that. They just wanted to make it look like black border. I got it for 35 bucks because it's considered damaged at like this vendor, and it's not fake. I already checked. This was back when Savannahs were like 80, 90 bucks. So pretty awesome deal all around. And hey, I don't really care that it got Sharpied. Nice, pretty 7th edition foil, you know, Field of Wheat. Always love that. Reminds me of Gladiator. Buried Alive. What's the difference between Gem and Jelly? So here's Buried Alive. And, you know, it searches for 3 creatures. Awesome card. Really big fan. Merciless Eviction. It exiles things. I love exiling things. There's a lot of stuff I just never want to see again, and that does a really nice job of it. We got my nice foily 7th edition Llanowar Elves. These I got in a foil bin at a GP one time for like, I think it was 25 cents. So I'm sure they're worth more than 25 cents. They look amazing. I love it. And I think it is the only Llanowar Elves card to feature more than one elf on it. And that kind of makes more sense than, you know, having one. Eldritch Evolution. This is an absolutely incredible tutor in this deck because Karador allows you to cast things from your graveyard. So yeah, Eldritch Evolution is pretty much an auto include, I would say. Shieldred, I love Shieldred. Awesome card. So abusive. Pretty oppressive against the right types of decks. And Swamp Walk is, you know, again, something not really to be overlooked. Disciple of Bolas, card draw, life gain, sack outlet on ETB. This guy's nuts. He's so good. You have to run him in the deck. You got to run him in any graveyard deck, any junk deck, any deck with black in it and some creatures, I think is probably worth running. Knight of Autumn, same deal. I love this card. I'm really glad they printed it. I think it's, you know, I would argue it's a pretty undervalued card for EDH especially. You know, yeah, it doesn't put the counters on other creatures, it puts it on itself, but, you know, whatever. I do run Urborg Coffers in the deck in terms of, you know, lands. Here's Urborg. Fauna Shaman, you know, it's another slightly worse Survival of the Fittest. Still, it's worth running in the deck. You know, lots of value. Ramunap Excavator. So I put him in the deck so I can recur Strip Mines if I have to. And I also just put him in there to kind of help against land destruction decks because I was encountering a lot of them. The whole thing with Karador, really, the goal is to be as resilient as possible. It's a slow deck. It definitely wins the long game, grindy. So you have to kind of understand that when you're building it. But, you know, it's fine. I can, Ramunap Excavator, he's kind of a dead card in certain matchups, but worst case, you can use him with Strip Mine. Reanimate, pretty straightforward. Kisali Pride Mage, pretty straightforward. Artifact enchantment removal. Birthing Pod, I don't have any, I don't run like the Angel whatever combo with it, but I still think Birthing Pod is just a really good tutor in a deck that can play creatures from graveyards. We got our nice shiny Ravnica Forest. Get that angle. Come on. That's not what I was looking for. Whatever. Anyway, you understand how that works. Reflecting Pool. I do think any deck that's at least 3 colors could run Reflecting Pool. I think 2, it kind of gets a little unnecessary. Pernicious Deed. It's great removal card. It's pretty narrow removal, but that can be pretty good for you. Sakura Tribe Elder. Land Ramp. Viscera Seer. He's good. Viscera Seer. Yeah, he's pretty good. You use him for infinite combos. It's like the Reveillark Karmic Guide combo, same deal. So he's pretty straightforward. I do think you need to run him. Vampiric Tutor, Tutor, pretty straightforward. Golgari Thug. It's good because Dredge can, load up your graveyard for you a little bit, but it also gives you a little bit of exile protection, so you can just kind of sit him on the field. And then when somebody goes to exile your graveyard or exile something from the graveyard, you can sack him to put that card on top of your graveyard, on top of your library from your graveyard. It's not much, but, it helps. Ashen Rider, for many, many years, I was running Angel of Despair, and I really hated getting rid of Angel of Despair and putting in Ashen Rider instead. But, unfortunately, it's just so much better. You really can't justify keeping Angel of Despair in instead of Ashen Rider. So, there he is. Mind Slicer, destroy people's hands. He's great. Really good against control decks, really good against combo decks. Sun Titan, pretty straightforward card. You can recur Pernicious Deed, Sacro Tribe Elder, Necromancy, a lot of stuff. So really solid card. I would pretty much rate it as an auto-include in the deck. Volrath Stronghold, I think you need to have it. Again, it can help protect you when your graveyard or a card is trying to get exiled. And it also just allows you to recur things from your graveyard. Obviously top of the deck, but it's still pretty good. Shriekmaw, I believe he's been outclassed as well. Fear isn't super relevant because, you would need 14 turns actually to kill someone with it. The, evoke cost is nice. It does get to your graveyard from the evoke, which is why I run it. So that's probably the biggest justification for running it. Now we have our very pretty Lorwyn Swamp, of course. Animate Dead. It's, it reanimates things. It's a pretty straightforward card. Soul Ring. Aven Mind Sensor. So yeah, the deck definitely is a little bit more hatebearsy right now than it normally would be. But again, it was because I had to. I think Aven Mind Sensor is a good enough card to run in most EDH decks that have white in them. It hoses fetch lands. It shuts down their tutors for combos, stuff like that. Carrion Feeder, Sack Outlet. He can get pretty big, especially when you do like Reveillark Karmic Guide. Beautiful 7th edition Forest. Exhume. It is signed actually. It's from a collection I bought a long time ago. But it's still a good card. Even like I would have it in here even if it wasn't signed. Let's see. Peacekeeper. He's an auto include. One of the best things that's going to keep you alive throughout the early to mid game, and especially in the late game. Terastodon. Again. So let me just go back to Peacekeeper really quickly. You can keep sacrificing it so you don't have to deal with it on your turn and then just keep reanimating it with Karador. It does make it more susceptible to graveyard hate, so just be careful if you're going to do that. Terastodon, ETB, destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. He's pretty straightforward. I do think you need to run him. Coffers. Boonweaver Giant. So for a really, really long time, I did not want to run this card. I did finally give in because I needed a little bit more consistency with combos. Since this deck was starting to get outpaced by a lot of newer combo decks, and just newer decks in general. So, I'm not a big fan of that style of play, but I think, at a certain point you do have to kind of fold to it and accept that your opponents are going to do it. And if you like to win, which I do, you have to put it there. So we do run the Boonweaver Giant combo. Demonic Tutor. I did just have someone trade me a Shalai, and I think that this is worth having. I haven't gotten to play the deck with it yet. I only got it like last week, and I don't get to play that often. But yeah. Other creatures having hexproof and giving you hexproof. It's really important because it helps defend against a lot of the graveyard hate, since most of it targets, I wouldn't say most of it, but a lot of it does target a player. And then giving other creatures hexproof, why not? Since it's pretty easy to recur, it's pretty easy to justify putting in the deck. We got Birds of Paradise. We've got Core Haven. I think it's necessary, especially with the rounding up excavator. So even if people are killing it, you can keep getting it back. Pattern Rebirth is in there for the Boonweaver Giant combo. Elvish Visionary, you know, you use them with Karador early game and even mid game. At any time in the game, I guess, really. He draws you cards. She draws you cards. It's a good card. Fiend Hunter. This one is important in this deck because you almost always have sack outlets. So you can stack those triggers and permanently exile your opponent's creatures. So I would definitely recommend running it. And make sure that if you're running it, you don't substitute one of the other ones that doesn't work as well, or it doesn't work at all for exiling things permanently, because that's just kind of a mistake you don't want to make. Blood Artist, pretty straightforward. You need it for the infinite combos, and it just gives you some nice value over the course of the game. Crossing Grip. The split second is the only reason it's in there. There are better artifact or enchantment removal cards, you could argue, but for me, you know, when I need it gone, I need it gone. You know, this is going to be used for like Rest in Peace, Grafdigger's Cage, stuff like that. So, you know, Crossing Grip is pretty much non-negotiable in terms of my artifact removal or enchantment removal suite. Eternal Witness, you know, get things back from the graveyard to your hand. You can recur it with Karador. Protean Hulk, you know, so we can, you know, do the infinite combo. It's good. I think it's necessary, again, to just kind of speed up the deck with its combos a little bit. Gaddock Teague, I love this card. It's super annoying for people, so of course I like it. You know, he's one of the few cards that I was happy to see reprinted just because how cheap he is now, and how expensive he had been. Ashnod's Altar, combo enabler, value. Karmic Guide. This is part of the, you know, Reveillark Karmic Guide combo, and of course, it's just really good value because Karador, it does kill itself, so you can keep reanimating stuff with it by playing it with Karador. So it allows you to get 2 bodies out of the yard instead of 1 off of Karador, for at least for blockers, as far as blockers are concerned. Plague Crafter, I did recently put him in over Fleshbag Marauder because it can hit Planeswalkers, so I think it's just strictly better than Fleshbag Marauder. Drawd's Orders. It's basically a double tutor, so I think it's a fantastic card. I really don't see a reason why you would cut it, so it's there to stay. Entomb, so it's probably one of the best tutors in the deck since it puts it into the graveyard for you. The only better tutor would be one that puts it onto the battlefield, really, like a Green Sun. But I ended up not running Green Sun in the deck just because I haven't really found myself needing it ever. Beast Within, pretty straightforward. I did not get that new Elephant Gift, whatever version of Beast Within, but I probably will eventually. Strip Mine, you know, destroy people's lands. Nice, shiny plains. Spore Frog, because you have to in Karador. Beautiful Arena Forest. I love that they went with that artwork specifically. I wanted to show, yeah. There you go. Yeah, so fantastic forest. I wish that I had bought more when they were cheap. I never expected them to go up to what they are now, so I definitely regret that. Reveillark. I love this card. I've loved it ever since it was in the pre-con in, I think, Shadowmoor, with the little Kithkins. Awesome card. Murmuring Bosk. It's a, you know, it adds all the colors you need in the deck, so it's pretty good. And while I don't have it in here anymore, I believe, there was a point where I ran Tilling Treefolk and actually one time revealed the Tilling Treefolk from my hand to make Murmuring Bosk come into play untapped, and I was pretty proud of that moment. Elesh Norn. Speaking of Elesh Norn, RIP Iona. That was kind of sad. But, you know, I guess people, monocolored decks are probably slightly happier now. Magister of Worth. This card's awesome. I would pretty much rate it as an auto-include. yeah, I mean, it hoses the aggro decks because almost everybody will choose Condemnation, and if they choose Grace, like you get to, like, people get to bring creatures back from their graveyard to play. It's pretty good all around. I do think you want to run Mirren. She's a little bit of life gain, protects against exiling. Utter End, of course, I run it in every junk deck or black-white deck. Awesome Swamp. Let's get that nice foiling on there though. Hold on. Get that Moon. Oh no, I can't. Oh, there we go. I was kind of disappointed. Anyway, it looks better in person, but I love this swamp. I think it's really awesome. I also love the pink flower, like blossom swamp as well, from, I believe it's also 8th edition. Well, that was 9th, but I believe that one's from 8th. Greater Good. Again, exile protection and card draw. What's not to like about this card? Also, of course, one of my favorite decks of all time from Standard was Greater Gifts. I just think that was an incredible deck. I really loved it. And Solar Flare. Thought Solar Flare was amazing. But Greater Gifts, very cool deck. And then of course we have Eldrazi Displacer again. I don't know why all my displacers are Chinese. I don't know what I did. I don't know if it was a long time ago. I must have like placed an order, accidentally got Chinese ones, and just said, screw it, whatever, I'll keep them. Nothing wrong with it. I just sometimes forget what it does. Or like that it comes in tapped. Yeah, so that's Karador in a nutshell. Again, he does kind of switch between stacks and hatebears and Reanimator. I really don't think I'm going to see him go back to Reanimator for a long time, if ever, because the amount of decks that, you know, the power level of decks that have come out recently, I think are just too strong to really be doing anything other than disruption and then, you know, early game disruption and then mid game combos to win the game, unfortunately. You know, it used to be you'd play Reanimator and stuff like that in kind of like the longer games, but the longer games don't really exist unless you can find a playgroup that does it. Again, there's really nothing wrong with it. It just, you know, means you need to adapt accordingly.